Hello and welcome to Anfield Voices episode 2. I really appreciate all the support so far. If you could either like what you're listening to this on or subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. It'd help me know that people are enjoying it and it's worth continuing. Today's topic in general is a team in transition, and then within that we're also going to look at Salah and we're also going to look at do we miss Trent Alexander-Arnold. So a team in transition. For me, a transition is moving from something to something else. So a team in transition is our Premier League winning side moving into this season having bought and sold an extraordinary amount of players. Now, let me just list off who we bought in first. So here I've got Isak, Ekitike, Wirtz, Frimpong, Kerkez, Leone, Woodman, and even though we bought him last summer, Marmadashvili. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in. Out, Diaz, Nunes, Kwanzaa, Doak, Kelleher, Trent, Morton, Phillips, and then on loan but with an obligation, Harvey Elliott. On loan, Tsimikas, Yaros the goalie, and Davies the goalie. Now, I count that as 12 out. And a lot of them were players that were massively involved either with the starting 11 or in the squad. That's a huge difference already, right? When you move that many players around, and a lot of those players that have come in are first team players or will be first team players, that is so hard for players to get used to. Now, let's just think of, say, Virgil van Dijk, for example. He's now going to look to his left and see a completely different player in Kerkez. He doesn't know what his strengths are yet. He doesn't know if he's good at taking the ball in the air. He doesn't know if he's good at taking the ball from his feet. He doesn't know if he's likely to try and take somebody on or pass around them. He doesn't know if he's going to track back as well as maybe Robertson used to. Then he looks to his, not immediate right, but his far right, and he's probably got Frimpong or even Szoboszlai playing there now. What's he going to do? Have I got to try and pass him that way, or is he going to be there, or is he going to run with it? Is he going to take players on? Then he looks in front of him, and he's now got Wirtz asking for the ball constantly. Okay, so you could play that along the floor, but Virgil van Dijk used to love doing a diagonal ball. Well, now he looks up, and Salah's been marked by two players, but he's now got Ekitike or Isak. Can he just throw the ball to them then, or do they run onto the ball, or do they come and collect the ball and shield it? And it's such a change, and you've got to then think that's the same for Konate. That's also the same for the new players, Kerkez. That's the same for Frimpong, and it works the whole way up the pitch, and it's such a difficult thing to explain, but they're all going through it, and that's why it's so hard in this first 7 games to say that they're just rubbish, because they're going through this transition. On top of that, only 3 players have actually played all of the minutes so far for Liverpool in the Premier League, and that is Virgil van Dijk, Mohamed Salah, and Dominik Szoboszlai. So on top of the fact that they're all trying to get used to each other, they're also constantly changing. Now, whether that's down to form, whether that's down to tactical decisions, whether that's down to injuries. I mean, you look at Bradley and Frimpong, both of them have had injuries that they've had to come back from. Gravenberch was suspended, and then he had to come back in. Isak, Ekitike was looking good. It looked like they was getting some good relationships, but they needed to build up Isak's fitness, which they can only do by giving him minutes. So he's had to come in and play, which we wanted him to, obviously. But that's then going to affect them getting used to Ekitike. And then when they're both fit, do they both start? If that's the case, then that's a whole nother system they're going to have to learn. And that's why I think as fans, we need to be very patient. We need to keep supporting them. And I think we need to try not overreact. I try not to overreact myself. I may have on a couple of my TikTok posts maybe been slightly reactionary. But I think some of the comments I'm getting are insane, to be honest. And I don't think a lot of people have messaged me and said, "Oh, it's the youth; they don't know." But in actual fact, I don't think it really is just youth. I think it's across the board. I think some people just react quicker than others, no matter the age. And I think we just need to calm. We're still only 1 point behind Arsenal. It's not like we're in crisis. Don't get me wrong, if we lost to United, I'd maybe start thinking that we might be in a bit of a crisis. But it's such a hard thing to try and, for players to get used to playing with each other, they need to play. That sounds so obvious. But then when you're constantly changing the team around, you're having injuries, you're trying to play different teams who have different tactics, so you're having to constantly change formations. It's so tough. And that's why I think Palace also looks so good, because they've managed to keep the majority of their players and they've added in a bit extra. And with that, the players all know how to play with each other. That's why we did so well last season, because all the players knew what they needed to do. And they all knew how each other played, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. On top of this, and included in transition, you've got Mo Salah. Now, Mo Salah last season was probably one of his most prolific seasons, and all of us were desperate for him to sign his new contract. This season, he's currently on 3 goals and 3 assists in all competitions, which actually isn't that bad if you compare it to some other players, but he doesn't look like he's doing a lot in games. He doesn't appear to be tracking back. He's missing chances that you'd expect him to bury. But if you actually look back to last season, he didn't track back then either. And actually, the counter-attack was based on the fact that he was the highest player. He used to have to sit right on that right-hand side on the halfway line. If we ever had a corner, he was told to stay there. Now, he said that Slot told him it was to save his energy, and then he could burst, he could hold the ball up, he could cross the ball in if players caught up with him, or he could go for goal, and it worked a dream. Other teams have now figured that out, so they double up on him. And also, I now think that we've actually got an actual number 9. Núñez, Diaz, Jota, they used to all track back and help with defending. Núñez, the amount of times you'd see him in our own box heading the ball out, and you'd be like, that's great, but you want him up front. Well, now you've got Ekitike and Isaac, who do press very well, but they do not really track back and defend. So instead of having one player not track back, we've now got 2 players not tracking back. And I think that's also making quite a big difference. You also look at Jota. It's a very sensitive subject, which I don't want to put my foot in. So I'm going to try and be a bit delicate on this. Obviously, it was out of absolutely nowhere. I don't think they were planning on selling Jota. I think he was going to stay. So the plans they had sort of went out the window with his passing. You looked at Salah. I think it was the first home game where he stayed out at the end and was basically just bawling his eyes out, listening to all sing about Jota. And you can tell he's still not quite there, in my opinion. I think it's also affecting other players as well. Now, I've heard some fans and some rival fans say that it's something you shouldn't be using as an excuse, but I'm sorry that grief is a thing. You know, it's part of life, which an excuse is the wrong way of putting it, but it definitely would affect the players 100%. I don't think they thought Diaz was going to go. I don't think they planned on his sell. If you look at the other teams that were sold, Núñez, he was going to go. Kwanzaa, I think they knew that. Doak, Kelleher, they knew that. Trent, they knew that. Morton, Phillips, Elliott, Simicast, I think nearly all of them, they were planned exits. I don't think they thought Diaz was going to go anywhere, and he would bring something to this team now that we don't have. We haven't replaced Diaz. I know he played in the centre a lot of last season, but if he was here now and we had Isaac and Ekitike, he would be keeping Gakpo at the team, in my opinion. and his pace and his sort of Rottweiler. Do you know what I mean? That sort of like he used to get his foot in, didn't he, constantly and nip at people all the time. I think he'd be in, and I think we would see different results with him in the team, and we haven't replaced that. So again, that's something else that adds into the transitional part of this. It's so difficult to change your system, change 8 players, and still play extremely well. And the fact that we've managed to stay within a point of Arsenal at this point is actually a bit of a miracle, because we should probably have drawn and lost more games. I think people think, well, you've just spent 450 million, you should be the best team in the world. In a season's time, we probably will be the best team in the world, because they'll all have got used to each other. But right now, we've got to try and win while not playing particularly well and learning a whole new system. I think people saying that Slot has no idea and that he's been found out, which I have had a lot of comments of that as well. I also think that is an overreaction. I mean, the man literally won the Premier League. That isn't luck. You can't luck your way through 38 games. Like, that's crazy. And he's also done it at his past teams as well. You know, I have a lot of Feyenoord fans who come on TikTok and say, look, if you don't want him, we'll have him back. He was fantastic for us. And there's a reason that they would want him back, and that's because he's a fantastic coach. You look at the players that came out last season and spoke about the differences between him and Klopp, and they all said that his knowledge of the game is unbelievable and unrivaled. You look at, like, the first game we played Man United last season, and he just came out and said, oh yeah, well, we noticed that they do this and this, so we decided to do this and this. I think last season we used to go, we need to do this to beat you, whereas almost now, this season, he's trying to figure out his own team while other teams are making it harder for us because they know how he likes to play. So it's going to be tricky. But we need to stick behind him. We need to support him, and I think he'll come good. I've got no doubt about that. So with Salah, people are asking him for him to be dropped. Sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent then. It's so tough to drop him. I maybe would drop him for a game or two. Although if he scores a couple for Egypt in the international break, I'd put him straight back in, because as soon as Salah's confident, he is a beast. I think he needs something to snap his, like, I don't want to say selfishness, although, the best strikers are selfish, but his determination is what I mean. As soon as someone tells him he can't do something or he's not going to do something, you can see it in his head. He's like, right, I'm going to prove you wrong. And that's what makes all the best players, because they make themselves better. And I think either dropping him or him getting a couple of goals away at international duty or whatever, I think it will get him going again, and I think he'll be another beast. I think if we did drop him, I don't see it being against United, because his record against United is absolutely frightening. And it's tough for the manager to drop a player like that, because he'll literally score or assist in the 90th minute, having barely done anything all game, because he's one of those players. So it's tough. Also, he's part of the leadership team, so you can't just drop him because it'll upset the other players, and it upsets the dressing room and all that kind of stuff. But he will come good, Salah. There's no doubt about that. He's shown that season after season after season after season that he is one of our best and most consistent players. And to just say all of a sudden that the player who got the golden boot and the assists and the player writers of the year and the players player of the year, all of these things last season, just to say he's fallen off the edge of a cliff and won in 7 games is crazy. And another big thing, which leads me into the next topic, is I truly think he's missing Trent. Because you can say what you want about Trent and how he left, but Trent was a player who did something from his position that no other player does. There isn't another right back in the world who does what Trent did. And that was clearly our secret weapon. And it wasn't even that much of a secret. It was just our weapon. Now, his through balls I haven't seen anybody do anything like it from his position. Now, we bought Wirtz as the person to replace his creativity. And I did a video on TikTok the other day which showed that he can do those things. But again, he does it in a different way. So players are running differently. He's doing it differently, which means that when the players get used to playing with each other, they'll know, oh, if I run, Wirtz is going to get me the ball. If I run here, he'll get it through this channel. But until they start learning to play with each other, they ain't going to learn that. So again, it's a transitional thing. But Trent's relationship with Salah was just unbelievable. They've played together almost consistently for however many seasons. They both nearly always played the 90 minutes. They know each other's game like the back of their hands, and that is a huge miss for Salah. They knew that if we got the ball and they gave it to Trent, Salah could just go and run facing the goalie, and he knew the ball would end up in front of him, right in front of him at his feet. And there aren't many players who can do that. So yes, we do miss Trent. There's no two ways about it. But will we still be saying that by the end of the season? No, I don't think we will. Frimpong, I think, brings something completely different. Same as Connor. I think Connor likes to use the same space and channels that Salah does, so it doesn't work quite as well. I think when Salah and Connor realise what they're doing and that they need to switch and change every so often, I think that will help. But there is times when both of them are stood very close together because they both want to do the same thing. I think Frimpong wants to get to the byline constantly, similar to Kirkes, but Gakpo and Salah aren't used to that. So what they'll do is they'll use that extra man as a way of cutting in and shooting. But everybody knows that Gakpo wants to cut in onto his right foot, and everybody knows that Salah wants to cut into his left foot. And sometimes I think they're just going to have to realise that they need to use that extra man who's ran to the byline, because we now have a number 9 who's actually going to be in the centre of the box waiting for that ball from Kirkes or Frimpong. And that's a massive, massive thing that they need to learn. Again, it's another transitional thing. It's really interesting how much learning needs to be done, and only playing with each other is that going to change. And it's just how long it's going to take. It's not a will it happen, it's a when will it happen. Because I am convinced that with the squad we have now, we will be one of the best teams in the world. But it's a matter of how long does it take? And you need players to stay fit. Like at the moment, Isaac is managing to stay fit and get fitter and fitter. If he does get an injury like he has had in the last couple of seasons, that puts the whole thing back even further. Ekitike, I think he's fantastic. I think he's probably been one of our most successful signings. However, I also think he sometimes is sloppy on the ball when it comes to shooting. His heading is atrocious. That, for a man of his height, he should be one of the most dangerous aerial players we have. But in actual fact, I don't know if he turns away, I don't know if he closes his eyes, I don't know what happens, but the ball doesn't seem to go anywhere that it looks like he's trying to aim for. I think Wirtz is getting there. Some of the passes and the space he gets into is incredible, but either they don't realise he's got into that space so they don't pass it to him, or his passes, sometimes he loses it quite easily, it looks like, but it's because he's trying things. And that's the thing with a creative player. When Trent did it, he was doing it so far away that if he lost the ball, it was like, it doesn't really matter. Whereas when Wirtz loses the ball, it makes them counter-attackers and it looks worse than it is. I think Gravenberch, Slot seems to want him to have more freedom, so he's more of an 8 than a 6. Personally, I think that is leaving huge gaps behind us. I've said about the running back, I don't think that's working quite as well either, and I think they need to work on that. I think Slot basically needs to pick his best 11. He can't just have 3 players that have played all 90. I know McAllister isn't quite fit yet. He doesn't look like it either. I think he needs a rest. There's so much going on, and I could keep going on and talking about it, but we just need to be patient. We've had some really tough games as well at the start of the season. Bournemouth aren't an easy side. Newcastle away is one of the top 3 hardest away games. Arsenal, one of the hardest games. Was it Brentford or Burnley? I think it was Burnley. We won that one. And then Crystal Palace, they're a very well-drilled side. And I know they lost to Everton, but they're a very good side. They really are, Palace. And they're going to take some big scalps this season. And then Galatasaray, I actually thought we were the better team. We just didn't finish our chances, and they did. And then, I mean, Chelsea, Caicedo's goal was unbelievable. Like, no one's stopping that. And then for them to score at the last minute, I mean, I think Slot maybe made some odd changes. It was weird that we had Gomez on the bench, and he brought Gravenberch to the back, and then he brought Soboslai to the right back when we had Frimpong on the bench. But again, is it a fitness thing? I don't know, because Gomez is maybe not fit. Frimpong's just coming back from an injury. I'm not sure. All this stuff needs looking at. And I do think it's coming. I know I keep saying it, but it will happen. It's just a matter of when. That was a lot of information and my thoughts all in one go. I hope that's worked as a podcast. Like I said, please like, please subscribe, and let's keep going. Enjoy the international break if you can. United next. I'm going. I'm really excited. Yeah. Have a lovely day. Come on, you Reds.